Next, we will hear from Robert J. McWhirter.
What is cruel and unusual punishment? The Eighth Amendment to the Constitution says it's prohibiting cruel and unusual punishment. But when you think about that, that's a very subjective thing. I represented a woman once who had killed her husband. And trust me, this guy had it coming. I have always said that I do not believe in capital punishment. I have fought the death penalty. But although I say do not believe in capital punishment, that doesn't mean I don't believe in the death penalty carried out by other people. She was charged with second-degree murder. She was acquitted on that and was convicted of manslaughter. And there was a problem, and a colleague of mine took her appeal, got it overturned. So she had spent some 14 months incarcerated and came back. And this woman had grown up in a family which was totally abusive father, marries an abusive husband. And she said to us, I didn't mind prison. It's the only safe place I've ever known. Now, this is not an endorsement of the prison system. What it is where the people come from that go to prison is sometimes pretty bad. Because what people default to is, where is food? Where is shelter? Where is safety? And when they get so habituated to prison as the source of food, shelter, and safety, as bad as it is, they will default to that in the face of anxiety as they're out. That is what the struggle we have to deal with. Changing that dynamic of their reality. Punishment in the common law system. I happen to be a constitutional historian. When it's not my day job. Anyway, it's always been about shame. Pillaring. Remember people put in the stocks? The movie The Knight's Tale with Heath Ledger, there was a scene where he's in the stocks. It's about shame. Flogging has terrible pain connected to it, but ultimately that's not the real thing. If you remember the movie Glory with Denzel Washington, Morgan Freeman, far and away the best Civil War movie ever made. Denzel Washington's character is Trip, and there's one point where he goes AWOL to find some shoes. He comes back and he's going to be flogged for it. And they rip his shirt off and he's scarred because he'd come from slavery. And the flogging begins. And this is a hard man. The pain means nothing to him. This is a man who had been flogged and whipped as a slave. And Denzel Washington, as he plays it, stands there, barely flinches at each blow, but a tear rolls down his cheek. It's the shame. That's what people have to overcome. The word felony comes from fell, like in Lord of the Rings, a fell beast, or you'll read Shakespeare, fell deeds. A felon is a fell person. He's an evil person. It's opposed to a misdemeanor, which is just bad demeanor, kind of misbehavior is misdemeanor, much less. But the felon is designed to provide shame. And when you talk about, or when I've talked to my clients who have left, they have to confront a world where their friends look at them differently, their families look at them differently, their associates, they have to deal with shame. The ones who are self-aware, some of them who aren't self-aware aren't even that far. And that's part of what people have to overcome, is dealing with the shame of this, the anxiety, and get them so they just don't revert back to food, shelter, safety as the easiest way to go. That is the struggle to overcome. There's also things about the changes in the modern world. The prisons don't give you access to computers. I recently won a case in the Arizona Supreme Court, and the client, we then had an evidentiary hearing a month later, and we got the client released after 20 years incarceration. Think about 20 years. 20 years ago, the cutting edge technology was email. Nobody had a touch screen. He said that when he first used a computer, he didn't know what the term scroll down meant. We all know what scroll means, that's just English, but in the computer context where you go through a screen and scroll down, he went to a Taco Bell with a relative and was standing there, and the relative says, well, why don't you order? There's no paper menu. There's no board with the items on it. There's an electric kiosk with a touchscreen. Inconceivable. These are the simplest things that we've now taken for granted that folks all of a sudden now have to deal with. Imagine all the innovations, and that compound with getting on top of the shame. You mentioned prisons. You want to know what the smell is in a prison, and a jail is worse, by the way. It is a mixture of feces and disinfectant, and not like Febreze. Okay, this is industrial strength disinfectant hiding the faint continual whiff of human feces. I've never been in a jail, and I happen to be a connoisseur of jails and prisons. I've never been in one where that is not someplace in the facility. So this is the reality of what people come. But really, when it gets to the path of redemption, and this isn't even dealing with the folks with substance abuse issues, which then is a whole nother problem, it's overcoming this long tradition of creating shame as the real issue in punishment, so that we categorize people as felons. And like our friend just said here, do you really go to the interview with a shirt? That's pretty cool. But that's the shirt. That's the thing. You are now classified differently. You do not have the same rights as everybody else, constitutionally, in law. You can do things to get rights restored, etc., but you are purposely classified as different no matter what the efforts you made, and that's the continuing struggle. Again, I present these things. I have worked in the vineyards of the criminal justice system now for almost 35 years as a criminal defense attorney principally. And really, the vineyard produces a lot of sour grapes because you're continually dealing with the nuances of these problems in a society that is glib and simplistic. And how do you sit somebody down to get them to discuss something on a deeper level? Tough on crime is much easier to say than what about other things. I have some success when you talk about, well, you do realize that tough on crime and putting people away for 10 years and throwing away the key is a hell of a lot more expensive than doing a drug rehabilitation program. It's a lot more expensive. But that calculus doesn't get done very often. And I think that's a wedge place. The fiscal conservatives are the ones who can save us in this. The state of Louisiana started doing things with reentry, et cetera, not because they were progressive-minded, but they didn't have the budget to continue to incarcerate people the way we have. So there is a place for hope, and there's a place for opportunities. And you do have people in prisons who are looking for something different. But as any prisoner will tell you, your average warden or assistant warden got to where usually he is, but sometimes she, because they happen to have been a guard that wanted a pay increase. There's no special training. They didn't go get a sociology degree. They were a guard, and they figured out a way to move up in the system. They don't bring a lot to the table when it comes to that. And frankly, I think some of them feel just as imprisoned as some of the inmates sometimes. So these are the struggles that we have, but it is a work in the vineyard. And I think if you approach it that way and look at it that way, then at least you can move forward with the next step forward. So that is pretty much all I have to give, and there's other people here to talk as well, but thank you very much.